Vines, and I'm here to do the second free tutorial where you can purchase a corresponding supply kit. So for my first video, I really designed with my heart and not with my budget skills, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. I was just thinking, like, what are all the great things that are going to go into this? And then afterwards I did the math and I was like, ugh, not exactly the price point I want for my kits. So I will still have that kit available. However, it is going to be priced on the higher end. I did go a little bit excessive with the supplies. So we are going to do another kit, and it's going to be at a much more reasonable cost. The supplies cost what they cost, so it's not that. It's just I have a mix of some more expensive and then some more affordable items that are going to work perfectly. And you know, nothing is cheap, nothing looks fake, anything like that. But I hope you like it. And so to start, unlike the other videos in the past where everything's prepped, I'm going to be doing things kind of more in real time here so you can see the process. So for the last video, I had this beautiful wreath. I needed to do a little bit of snipping, not a big deal. This one is a hot mess and it looks like an oval. So I don't know if I can really show you this, but what I do when I have an ovally wreath like this is I actually just stand it up on the floor and I just push it down. I just put like a ton of pressure on it, like going like this, but against the floor. So I have a protective mat here. Like I wouldn't do it on a floor that, you know, is gonna get damaged, but I have it on a plastic mat. So you can see already we've rounded out this wreath. But now we need to address just what a mess this is, okay? So this is filled with dry leaves, okay? Now, if we go to glue in these dry leaves, they're gonna fall off at some point, so there's nothing actually securing them. They're already decomposing, so we need to really clean these out, not perfectly, but clean out the side, especially that we're going to be putting our materials in so that we can glue securely. I know some people like the look of the leaves. That's totally fine. I mean, it is going to be a little messy when you're moving your wreath in and out in between seasons. But again, it's your wreath, it's your home, whatever your vibe is, you want to make sure that you're matching it. So for me, I'm going to have this be polished. So I'm going to clean this out. Okay, fancy camera time. Woo. All right. So what I usually do is I just manhandle these things. They're not gonna break, okay? So whether I'm like pounding on it like Bam Bam from the Flintstones, or I'm going in and just scraping it out, it doesn't matter. Whatever you like to do. Some people use scissors, some things I'll use my hands for. We just need to, in general, get a bunch of this mess out, okay? I mean, I just hope I get a little credit because I could have taken an easier route and just picked a really nice wreath, but I'm doing this for you. So we're gonna show how it really gets done. Because sometimes you get, I buy wreaths like I buy wreaths in quantities of like 90 at a time, if not more. And so sometimes I'll get the most beautiful batch that are just like ready to go. And then sometimes I get wreaths with like a bird feather or pine needles. So what I think happens is I think a machine must pull it all together. I always feel very bad for the birds if that's what happened, but I don't know. So as I'm cleaning this, you can see, I mean, it's all coming out pretty easily. It does not need to be perfect. So the goal is just to make sure that we're getting enough cleaned out grapevines so that we can glue into them, okay? All right, now we're gonna decide what our best side is, okay? So for me, this side is a little bit wonky. It's a little bit less symmetrical. So this is the side I'm gonna be working with. So I'm just gonna go through one more time, kind of make sure some of these leaves fall out. All right, so our wreath is prepped now. And what we're gonna do is we're going to take a piece of this grapevine wire. Okay, now if you get the kit, this stuff will be in there. It's called natural grapevine wire. And what I like is to use it as a hook. And it's also a good guide when you're designing to just kind of like remember what your top is, just to kind of keep your North Star there. And then as far as whoever you're making it for, whether it's for yourself or you're gifting it, it's nice to give someone a guide as to where the intention was for it to be hung up. So I am going to go to the top of my wreath, and I'm going to pick a thick branch, and I'm going to slide this through. Okay, I'm going to feed this through. Sometimes people want to go all the way through, and what you're doing is you're going to make a very small loop for you to hang it on. So just pick one thick piece, thick enough that it's going to hold the weight of the wreath. This is an 18-inch wreath, and when it's done, it's probably going to be maybe like 4 pounds, I think, give or take. So you want to make sure it's on a stem that's really going to hold it, okay? And then this is just my little trick because this blends in so easily. I like to just mark things with a bow. This is this cute little leaf ribbon that I got off of Amazon that I love. Also natural, but it's also something we can spot, okay? So we have our hook, and we're going to hang it up here. And so you can see what I'm using. I glue everything using my glue pot, and then at the end, I use my glue gun. So I usually have them both firing up at once. So as you can see right now with the glue pan, it's got pellets in it, and the pellets are going to, they're going to melt as we go. So I don't have to wait for it to melt, but we're going to be using the parts of this glue that have like a honey-like consistency, okay? So what I love about this glue pan is it's like hands-free designing. You don't need to keep stopping and grabbing a glue gun or grabbing wire. It's just kind of all there at once, okay? So the first material we're going to put on our wreath are our ficus leaves. Now I'm going to be putting 5 in a kit. However, for this design, we're just going to use 3. The idea of the extra ones in the kit is in case something doesn't seem right, if something seems a little imbalanced, I always find that the easiest way to fix things without like dragging them down or making them too heavy or weighted looking is to use your leaves, okay? So we're going to cut on the sides of each, the outer branches, just snip them at the base. And then this middle branch is longer than we need. So at the halfway point, I'm going to cut. And then I'm going to cut again. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to prep your 3 sets of leaves. So again, we're going to do one on the side, snip it right at the base. The other side, right at the base. The middle, we're going to go at the halfway point. And for the sake of my maturity level, I have to mention that this lower part that's not perfectly pointy like this, it's not as pretty. I call it a nubbin. So it's still useful. We're going to use it, but we use it last as a filler. All right, last one. Sounds like we're working out, but we're not. So yes, I sat down and added up the materials for the first wreath I made and was like, yow, this is part of the balance or the struggle when you get excited about things and enthusiastic, especially like when you like to be creative and design, is that you're not always thinking about, you know, things that are important like the budget. So I really don't want to be selling super expensive kits. I'd love to give people some kits that are, you know, in an affordable price range, and then they can decide where they want to go from there with their materials. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is apply our ficus leaves. And we're going to use them to set the parameter, okay? So any nubbins, you should have 3. We're going to move them to the side and just focus on our pointy ones. So nubbins, we'll see you in a bit. All right, and here we go. So when I'm designing, I'm very OCD. So if you see me doing something once, I'm going to do it again. So like this is like my little recipe, okay? So top corner, we're going to point one straight out. Now we're going to go ahead And it doesn't need to be the exact same size. As long as it's one of these pointy ones, we're gonna go back and we're gonna mirror that, okay? And I like doing things in this step because it does allow us to maintain balance and not lose our focus point for this design. Now on the side, this top side, we're gonna have this leaf and it's gonna be following the curve of our wreath. So I just want you to see things are not gonna break, okay? This is like my little, you know, spiel about wreath making is that even when you're not used to doing something, it can be intimidating, but there's really nothing that you're gonna do that's gonna break your stuff. Like if you cut something too short, you can add a floral pick. If you leave something too long, you can trim it. So if a head pops off of something, you can fix that too. So the more that you work with your materials, the more you realize like they're working for you and you're gonna manipulate them however you want. So for this, like I'm bending it. I can bend it back the other way, it's fine. So I'm gonna give this a slight bend so that it follows my wreath. Like so. And then we're gonna go into this middle section and add 2 more. So this is our upper half of our wreath. And then we have our lower half. And so for a crescent style wreath, which is basically like a moon shaped wreath or a half covered wreath, you can see right now we already have this little like halo, okay? And we're gonna try and stay within this whole set of foliage, but if we have to go beyond or we have to add more leaves, that's fine. We have extra. This is just, again, like a little bit of a guide. All right. So we are gonna start with our hydrangeas. We're gonna use blue hydrangeas for this. This is our focal flower. For this one, we don't need the leaves. So if you want to repurpose the leaves, there are designs that I use it for, but also sometimes these just build up and instead of, you know, saving every single bit, it's better to just let things go so that you can have a peaceful workspace. So I will be letting this go. All right, we're going to take our first blue hydrangea. This is a very large bloom and we're going to put it towards the top facing inward, okay? And when you think about flowers in nature, they grow towards the sun. So when you want something that does have like that natural feel to it, it's great if things aren't all like up and down, like perfectly symmetrical. Like I like them like organized chaos. Like everything has a place, but it's not too matchy-matchy because then it just looks manufactured and nobody likes a manufactured wreath. Nobody. I constantly look at them in stores and I just shake my head. But anyways, enough about that. So now we're going to take our second bloom, and this is going to go on the lower half of our wreath. So I am going to have this one facing outward. Okay, so right now these blooms are close. They're barely touching. They're kind of like nuzzled respectfully, but we don't want them crammed in, okay? Now, if you're designing this wreath for somebody with a storm door, you would want this head of this bloom to be straight up against your wreath base, okay? Because otherwise it's just gonna be crushed. But because this is not going for a storm door, you can see that I've left, I don't know, like a good 3 inches or so. So there's like an airiness to it. And we wanna kind of keep that flow going. Okay? Now we are gonna go in with some of these gorgeous berry cabbage roses, okay? So I'm gonna slide the greenery up. If it was in my way, I could also slide it off. I could kind of go either way with this one. So like that one's being stubborn, so I'm just gonna slide it off. That one I'm sliding it up. All right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a little clustering in between these flowers, which is why it was good to just leave a little bit of space, okay? So we're gonna use our large bloom. Then in the middle, we're gonna use like a baby bloom. bit. And then we're going to use another large bloom. Okay? So already this is coming together. Now we're going to go with, we have these beautiful airy peonies. Now, I don't love the greenery on this. It looks artificial, so I would recommend just removing it. If you like something, I'm always going to tell you to do what you like. It's your wreath. It's for whoever you have it intended for, and you want it to be something that you love and you're proud of. So if you like the leaves, then that's totally your prerogative. All right, so we're putting one above our top hydrangea, off to the corner, and then I'm going to mirror that down here. Let's see. Okay, now we're going to go in with our bisque cabbage roses, sorry. And clearly I left this one way too long, so I'm just going to trim it. And start building this outward a little bit. So sometimes it might be a little bit tough to get parts through your grapevine. If that happens, you could try and snip one of the thicker branches. I would just do it in a place that it's going to be disguised. And you can only really do it like once or twice. If you do it too much, you're going to compromise what's actually holding it together. So we've done this little grouping here. And now we're going to go ahead and repeat this below. And also part of why I wanted to do another video was just to show that you don't need a ton of materials to make a beautiful wreath. It's just so easy to get carried away. And you know, like if you saw my unboxing today, I was like over the moon about all these new materials to try, and I think I was just way too gung-ho. So you can do a lot with less, and that's what we're going to be doing here. And one way to get around that is when you take just such a significantly large bloom like these hydrangeas, because they take up so much space. Okay. Let's see. Now we're going to use, I want to bring some of this color up here. And now we're going to go in with this greenery. Okay, so I love this greenery because it's very easy to manipulate. So it comes like this, but I always push it up. Okay, and I don't push it up like super far, but I do push it up towards the top. I want it to still have that airiness, so I don't want it to be too compact. So it's a little bit of a balance. So while I'm doing that, I know that someone had asked earlier about how I got into doing florals or faux florals. So really it started when I was a teenager. I would make things for my, my parents, my grandmother, whatever. And it just like felt good. It was just fun for me to do. As I grew older, I'd make them for friends. If friends had a new house, it'd be a housewarming gift. And there's just something like really therapeutic about it to me. Full disclosure, like I have anxiety sometimes. And for me, this is just like an anxiety-free, like almost therapeutic activity because it just makes me so happy. Last week I was away, and even though being on vacation is so fun, it was weird because I was like really eager to get back and apply what I had seen and what I had learned. I don't know if you see me on Instagram, but without even mentioning it to my husband, I sold our kitchen table and bought this really beautiful new one. And he's still in Denmark. So he called me yesterday to ask why the table was on Facebook. So I got busted. I bought myself a table for Mother's Day. Am I sorry? No, I'm not. I'm so happy with it. But I don't even know where I went with that. But I guess I was just like, I wanted to bring back what I had learned being in Copenhagen and then applying it. So there were so many florals, like so many like just earthy, natural things. And it just really inspired me. It kind of made my heart sing. So I think for me, going back to, I guess, the real question, which is how did I do this or why, is that it brings me a lot of joy. So there are people who do woodworking, that they paint. I mean, I listen to people talk about things they're passionate about in any arena, like, and it just fires me up. It fires me up because when somebody's passionate, like, you really know that they're passionate. So if you're passionate about making things, whether it's wreaths or painting or whatever, and it fills your heart, I just say go for it. I mean, I had a career in HR for almost 20 years. I didn't get my degree until I was 40, and I was using it to help me with my career path, only to a few years later just leave to go do what I love, which is this. So, you know, you can't really, I mean, it's not always that, you know, you can do things like full time, but I think that you shouldn't ignore something that makes you feel good, because it makes you feel good for a reason. Like if you have a gift, you want to use it. You want to flex your gift muscles, I guess. So you can see I'm using this fern all around, and it's really giving this a lot of movement, which I'm loving. And it's keeping it airy. Very corny, but I did work at a florist when I was 19, and I was told that when you're designing, always keep things airy enough so that a butterfly can fly through. And I know that sounds so corny, but it's a good reminder around leaving some space in between things, because if you just stuff, it doesn't have that, you know, look of what you would see in like a garden. Okay, so when you see a garden, what's kind of beautiful about it is like the weeds, the plants getting into each other. Sorry, it should not be on my face. It should be on the wreath. You know, you really get a feel for like the wildness of it. So that's what I like. So I'm gonna pair up these two here, and then just add this and make this a cluster as well. And I know that we have somebody who's getting ready to build her own workshop and do a renovation, and I'm super excited. So I'm going to be doing a tour of my workshop. It's just a mess right now. So I am going to clean it. I do a deep clean like at the end of the week. So I hope to have that tour done by then. So, all right. So this filler bush, I like it. I don't love it because I don't love these plasticky foliage leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push these to the bottom, and I'm just going to discard it. You might not think it's a huge deal to leave things on, but sometimes it's like you just need that one real tacky looking thing, and it like takes everything down, you know? So to me, it's not worth it to have that little bit of greenery. It's better to just strip it down. And on cue, there's Winnie, who's outside. She's not happy about it, apparently. But she's gonna have to wait. All right. So we're gonna go through with our clippers and trim these. And if you can find a good filler bush, like this fern, this one that I just used all throughout, like that's my go-to. I always keep a lot on hand, just like the ficus, because it can just adapt to so many different designs. It's perfect for floral arrangements. It's got a beautiful, like multi-toned green that looks natural. Instead of just, you know, always shopping around for supplies, when you find something really good, it makes sense to stock up. And also, if you are doing something, if you're ordering from a wholesaler in bulk, things get cheaper and cheaper when the quantities get higher and higher. So if you have a tried and true, I would say definitely, you know, if you can and you want to keep doing wreath making, to buy it in bulk. All right, so let's take a look. All right, this is looking good. This is looking good. I think that once we do our filler and add some of our excess ficus leaves, we're going to be in good shape, okay? So let's go. what I want to make sure that I'm doing is that, one, I want it to interrupt other flowers, but I always like to leave something trailing. I just think it leaves like a little bit to the imagination around like the movement of how these greens could be growing on a wreath. So I did it up top. We're going to do it on the bottom. Let's see. Slide some in here. So when I was learning to do wreath making, or when I got more serious about it, I would go to YouTube and I would watch Julie Samaco of Southern Charm Wreaths, and I still do. I'm in Julie's Success Circle. She has an amazing amount of wreath knowledge. She's very gifted, very talented, and so I wanted to pay that forward a bit with some of the tutorials. And then I thought just the wreath kits could be fun because you could, you can do them at your own pace. You can rewatch the video, pause it. I'm going to have some instructions in the kit. You could even do it with a friend at home. I mean, I don't know. I just think instead of like watching a movie, it's just so much more fun to like do things with people and get creative and whatever it is. Like, I love paint nights. I absolutely am horrible at painting, but I enjoy it, and like that's what I'm paying for. I'm enjoying the experience. I'm paying for the experience. But when I do my wreath workshops, I always include some complimentary zhuzhing at the end because based on my painting skills, I have never had a painting that I liked enough that I actually displayed in my home. So I always kind of assist people if they want. If they don't want assistance, that's fine. But I think these things, workshops can be a little expensive, and I don't want people to leave with something that they're not going to use. All right, so now we're going to go in with our little nubbins, and we're going to be looking for bare spots, okay? So we don't want to block crucial flowers, but we do want to make sure that we also can't see the grapevine on this side of our wreath. The other thing that's important to do is just sometimes like really take a step back and look. So I'm looking and I couldn't see this before, but there is like this huge gap right here that needs to be addressed. Okay. So whether it's that I'm gonna bend some of the florals in a different direction or what, it needs to be filled. Let me see. We will use one of these bisque flowers. Actually, I'm going to push this up this way to create a more balanced look. And again, going in with the filler greens. We don't want to block the flowers here. So we're going to just kind of move things around. And now we're just going to do some finishing touches with the ficus to keep that balance, to keep that halo look. So, they're not touching. I mean, they might be close together, but they're not actually touching. It's not making the solid wall of foliage. It's just kind of happily flirting and flitting on the outskirts of our wreath. Let's see, I have one more. And here's my dilemma. Is sometimes when you have one more of something, you want to put it in just to like have it done, but I think that would be a mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim this and use this as filler instead of like trying to make it part of this halo, because I can already tell I'd end up moving it afterwards. The other thing is when you're designing something, if something looks off, I usually recommend just kind of changing it around in the moment. That's kind of like my OCD itch. If I try and like force something to work and it's just not appealing to the eye. then it's going to have to come off at some point. Okay, so here we have this beautiful bright hydrangea wreath. We're going to do some finishing, polishing steps, because if you look on the back of this, there are stems sticking up. Those stems that are sticking out are going to be the enemy of your door paint. And I know a lot of people are making these for gifts. They're making them for their own homes, or maybe they're making them for their own business. No matter what it's for, we want to make sure that, you know, the expression of why we've made this comes across, and we don't want anything negative to come from it, like damage to a door. So as you can see, when I'm clipping these, I'm clipping off the part that was dipped in glue. So because of that, I'm going to go back after with my glue gun, and we're going to glue the tips. Okay. And this is nice because it's, you know, I live in New England, I'm in New Hampshire, and our weather is so erratic, and things really need to be made to last. There are people who prefer to design just for, you know, indoor. And I think that's fine. I think that's great. I mean, wherever you want to do it for, but I like to give people the option. And if I don't take all the steps to really make sure that things are secure, I don't think that they would survive. So even when it comes to picking my materials, like I don't use things that have like paper on them. You know, sometimes you might find a cute little filler bush, but the leaves and things are like felt or paper. Those aren't things that are going to last being outdoors. Like as soon as they get wet, they could be in trouble. So I'm just going back with the moss. So the moss will be in the kit. For anybody who does purchase the kit, it wouldn't be coming with, you know, the glue gun or glue pan and clippers. So those are things that people would need. But I will be supplying, you know, the wire, the ribbon, the moss. If it's a kit that had a bow, because we can always do bows, we can do whatever we want. All right, so I'm just going to pat that lightly because that is hot. Okay. All right, so there are 2 steps left to completely finalize the polishing of this wreath. So one is that any glue strings need to be addressed. So what I would do is I take a warm hair dryer and I run it across the front and the back, okay? Because even the back doesn't need to be beautiful, but we also don't want glue strings hanging from it, okay? And then the very last step is to use the Krylon UV protectant, and they sell this at Michael's, and this is really something, even if you have centerpieces in your home, even if you think that the wreath isn't going to be in full sunlight, it's just like sunscreen. Like, you might not think that you're getting sunlight on you or UV rays, but when you're in the car, you're going to get the mail, whatever it is. So you're going to get some sun exposure. So I do recommend people invest in a can. You just spray it on your wreath for, you know, 20-30 seconds. I always pay extra attention to the greenery because the greenery is the first to show signs of sun damage because they'll start to turn blue. And when they start to turn blue, they need to be pulled and replaced. So doing this is a great way to really extend the life of your product. So again, this is our wreath. I really appreciate the comments from people who had watched earlier last week. I'm really excited. I am like back. I am energized, and I'm really hoping that this is helpful to people, whether they're doing it as a hobby or they're looking to grow it into a business. And if you have any questions or there's anything else you want covered, please let me know because I'd love to be of service. Thanks, guys.